Hi, Manong George here and welcome to the channel. And for today's episode, we will give you an updated version on things to bring when you start working here in the UK.
Central London OSCE or London Hospital OSCE. You decide. Our Central London purpose-built NMC OSCE course and practice rooms include all of the equipment you need to practice for your NMC OSCE exam. You get the same expert team by your side, the same expertly prepared materials, and now a dedicated space built just for our international and return to practice nurses. Learn more at www.oscenurses.com.
So basically, this is a response video kasi we found out in our Facebook group. If you haven't joined us, it's Filipino UK Nurses Community. Do check us out on Facebook. We're 25,000 strong as we speak today. This has been an ongoing theme of questions. What do we bring when we arrive in the UK? What are essential things to bring when you arrive in the UK? So for today's video, we will give you an updated version for that for 2023. With the basics, you bring your required documents. Documents like maybe you should bring your original, obviously, passport. You should have that with you, but also bring original documents for your birth certificate, maybe even your requirements for the NMC. That would be very useful. Your original certificates for your English tests, and even your transcript of records, just in case if you would have further studies in the future with your current employer. If you have to go to university, these are very helpful. Coming from the Philippines, it's also essential that you have a 3-pin socket. Okay? How does a 3-pin socket? This is how it looks. Why bring a 3-pin socket? This is the standard that we use here in the UK. And this is just because I know in every traveler's essential now is that you have your own power bank. However, if you're in transit, and you've arrived in your accommodation and you don't have a 3-pin socket, how would you charge your power bank? So it's just saying that, so it's not just a 3-pin socket that you need also a good, reliable power bank so you can still communicate, use your mobile phone or maybe even your laptop once you arrive on your first day in your first accommodation here in the UK. If you're coming in the UK with a health condition, it's also advisable that you bring a good maybe 2 weeks or at least a month's supply of your own medication. Maybe if you're suffering from asthma, of course, bring your inhalers. Why I say that? It's because here in the UK, one of the most common reactions that Filipino nurses do incur when they arrive here, especially if you would arrive spring, summertime, is the high pollen count. And this is something that we're not accustomed to. And so it can trigger asthma reactions. So although the services from the NHS and your GP service would be free, of course, on point of contact, it will be best that you have them ready just in case an emergency asthma attack happens. So those are what we feel are the most essential bits that you should bring. Now, to answer specific questions from our community, here we go. One of the most common themes, how much money do I have to bring when I go to the UK? So this question is very difficult to answer because there's a lot of factors that involves in, how much money you have to bring to make sure that either you settle down or that you remain afloat in your first few months here in the UK. But my suggestion is first consider how much financial support you'd get from your employer. Each employer, has different offers per nurses, sometimes even because things that you would very much consider is first how long would you be allowed to stay in a free accommodation provided by your employer. That is the biggest expense, would be your rent, your initial rent. So always consider that. Now, if let's say you are coming to the UK and you would be starting in a trust or in a care home that would offer free accommodation for the first 2 to 3 months, enough time wherein you would be qualified at some point. I'd say if you are somebody who doesn't really go into a lot of personal shopping and you'd focus mainly on your OSCE and just the basics in the first few months, then an amount of about £500 can get you by. I think that's the minimum, if I'm being honest. But if you're in London, maybe it's safer to say that you're going to the region of nearly £1,000 just because things in London are a bit more expensive. So there you go. Between 500 to 1,000 pounds is my personal take on how much you should take when you arrive here in the UK. If you're talking about outerwear here in the UK and you need maybe a good jacket, my suggestion is, yes, you could bring a jacket, but don't go crazy, you know. Even if you're coming from the Philippines, second-hand jackets are more than enough as long as they're thick enough, you know, to go against winter. Especially if you're coming right now in the UK where it's winter time, a good thick jacket would help. However, there's another suggestion that that I can give you is that also think about layering. You know, especially during autumn season and spring seasons, you don't really need a lot of jackets to wear. But what you can do is maybe layer with jumpers, or what we call in the Philippines as sweaters. You can invest on them. You can invest on layers. Women have a lot of choices. You've got a lot of layers that you can put on. For men, usually it's just a jumper that you can put on. But what I always say is that for both men and women, don't just stay on maybe you have a very thick jacket like mine. All right. But also a good investment is bring a scarf. A scarf would help you because it can cover the back of your neck, which for me is one of the weaknesses against cold for a lot of Filipino people here in the UK. And also invest in a good headgear, maybe a good bonnet would do. So don't just worry about the jacket. Buy a jacket that is affordable for you, secondhand. You can buy that here in the UK when you come around here, but bring one and then think about layering and add up maybe gloves. I forgot gloves, scarf, and a headgear. And another thing that I might add when talking about buying jackets, if you're not really brand conscious, you can actually go to the leading shops. And when we say shops, big grocery stores that we have here in the UK, they actually sell clothes. And you can buy a decent jacket for around the region of £20. Another most common question from Filipino nurses are Filipino food. It'd be hot dogs, corned beef, dried fish, everything else under the sun. Yes, here's my biggest tip on that. If you're looking for Jollibee, if you can't live without Jollibee, the UK prides itself as having more Jollibee than Europe, the whole of Europe combined. Okay, so wherever you are in the UK, a Jollibee is about 2 to 3 hours. There's always about 2 to 3 hours drive to near you. Okay, but wow. Pero talking about the other goods I mentioned, my first suggestion is try to assimilate in the UK. Do not be afraid to try other things, you know. Try to enjoy the difference that we have here, you know. However, if you're really a diehard Filipino foodie, if you're really a diehard Filipino foodie, what I suggest is scout early where might be your nearest Filipino store. But if you can't find a Filipino store near you, Oriental stores or Chinese stores would have our products. Sometimes Asian stores, and when we say Asian, this pertains to more of the South Asian community. Maybe they come from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh. Sometimes they do have our food as well. I think you should remember our Filipino food are quite exotic here in the UK, so their prices sometimes are at a premium. If you don't believe me, look at our community and you can just search for the price of hot dogs from the Philippines. However, my best suggestion is check on the UK website on what things you could bring, what type of food you could bring from the Philippines, and bring some. So to give you a bit of nostalgia, to make sure that you don't feel too far away from home. But then again, I suggest always refer on the website of the UK government, because if you do bring something that is technically not allowed to get into the country, you can get a citation or you can get a warning, and this is something you don't want to, to bring with you to start with in your UK career. And so I hope that answers your questions on what to bring in the UK when you first arrive here. But if you have any other suggestions, questions, why not engage with us with our Facebook group, the Filipino UK Nurses Community. We are 25,000 strong. Do join us. And if you have any further questions, do find me on Facebook and drop me a message. And always remember, Manong knows.
Manong knows best, put your worries to rest when staying in the United Kingdom. Manong knows best.